Republicans actually overperformed in yesterday's special elections. Today, everyone is talking about the smaller margins in Florida, as well as Democrats picking up a Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin. But when you take a look at the historical context, it's really clear that the Democrats actually underperformed, and this sets the stage for what will hopefully be a strong showing for Republicans in next year's midterm elections. But first, let's take a look at how the Democrats are spinning this. So over on X, Tim Walz posted this: Wisconsin beat the billionaire. He's talking to, of course, sorry about that. What he was talking about was the Democrat, Susan Crawford, beating the Republican, Brad Schimel, who was endorsed and supported by Elon Musk. Now, what the Democrats are doing is they're trying to frame the Wisconsin election results as if it's somehow a referendum on Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And you saw there, Tim Walz framing it as, we beat the billionaires. But there's just one problem. The billionaires still won, because Susan Crawford, the Democrat, was a Soros-backed candidate, according to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Who is George Soros, and how much did he donate to Susan Crawford's winning campaign? Well, according to them, Soros donated $2 million to the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, which then gave the money to Crawford's campaign. The reason he did it that way is because of election finance campaign laws, and you can't give that much directly, so he had to give it to an outside group, which then funneled it in. It's almost dark money in a way, but it's not technically dark money since his name is clearly attached and we know exactly where it went. But part of the reason why I say Democrats kind of underperformed, and there was basically, this really wasn't a referendum, because if you compare this election to the last time Wisconsin had a special election for the Supreme Court, the results look almost identical. So the last time they had a special election was 2023. By the way, Joe Biden was in office, so it wasn't Donald Trump. Well, what were the results then? As you see here, the Democrat won 55.5% to the Republican 44.5%. So a 10-point margin of victory for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. 10 points. 2023 Joe Biden. Also take a look at how many votes the Democrat got. The winner, she got 1 million votes and 21,000. 1,021,000. So let's compare that to what actually happened last night. Well, right here, Susan Crawford won 55% compared to Brad Schimel at 45%. Ooh, a 10-point difference. Exactly the same as 2023. Yet the Democrats are trying to frame this as if, the voters are revolting against Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Doge. They're revolting against abortion. This is women standing up. Well, if that's the case, then why are the election results exactly the same between Joe Biden, like when Joe Biden was in office, and under Donald Trump? If there really was a rebellion, shouldn't the percentage be higher? But also, I pointed out, the last time there was an election, the Democrat won with 1,021,000 votes. Let's take a look at how many votes Brad Schimel, the loser, got. Brad Schimel got 1,063,000 votes. He actually set the record for the most votes that a Republican has gotten. Not only the record that a Republican has gotten, but he beat the record that every single Democrat has gotten before him. Susan, the reason she won is because, similar to Joe Biden in 2020, somehow set a brand new record. Draw whatever conclusion or inference you want to that if you will. But in 2020, Donald Trump set the record for the most votes ever. And then Joe Biden obviously somehow got 81 million. Do the math. And all of that leads to this segment on CNN where they actually said the quiet part out loud. On the one hand, they're bashing Elon Musk for getting involved in politics, yet they're turning a blind eye to what George Soros has been doing, not just in yesterday's special election in Wisconsin, but over the last few decades. What is the difference? Here's what they said on CNN.
Go on about saving humanity. It's just an ego trip.
Well, what's interesting about it is you heard anytime anybody brings this up, a Republican will say, well, what about J.B. Pritzker, and what about George Soros, and what about this, what about that? And I guess the answer is you don't see George. First of all,
George Soros in
you don't see them out there talking.
Yeah. No.
Right? I mean, they might be giving money to organizations, this and that, and people can criticize that if they want. But the idea that, like, oh no, I am going to tell these voters, forget like hiring Scott Walker to do it or somebody on the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to tell them.
Right. No, he has to suck up all the oxygen. There's only one other person that needs more attention. is Donald Trump.
Okay. So the only difference between Elon Musk and George Soros is the fact that Elon Musk actually wants to get involved, be transparent, and talk about why he is supporting the political causes he's supporting. Meanwhile, George Soros can sit in a smoke-filled, dark back room, give money wherever he wants, and that's totally okay because he's staying out of the spotlight. If they would apply that logic to the Hollywood celebrities who come out and endorse the Democrats, shouldn't CNN be now against Beyonce and Cardi B for endorsing Kamala Harris? It's not just their money. They're getting out there. They're talking. You can't have it both ways, CNN. So, yes, the Republicans lost in Wisconsin, but I would, again, like to point out that the results were exactly the same to 2023. So I don't think that this was an overperformance by Democrats. If anything, it was an underperformance because they set a record. On top of that, they were trying to mobilize the base. They failed to do that. There are so many reasons why they should not be rejoicing with joy over the Wisconsin results. But a lot has been said about the Florida results. So I want to be very clear. The Republicans did win both districts in Florida. So District 1, they won by 14.6 points. And then in District 6, they won by 14 points. Now, Democrats are pointing out that this is an underperformance by Republicans. Basically, Donald Trump's victory margins in 2024 have been cut in half. And in some cases, by more than half. And Democrats are trying to claim that that is proof that the Democrat rebellion is growing and Republicans should be scared going into the midterms. Now, obviously, I don't think Republicans should take anything for granted. I think they should continue to work hard and keep the momentum going into 2026. But when we take a look at the historical norms of special elections, again, Democrats underperform. But before we get into that, here's how they spun it on CNN.
You can see it here. The election margins in the U.S. House District. Donald Trump won the 6 by 30 points. Last night, what did we see? We saw the Republican Randy Fine win by 14. That's a swing of 16 points. But that's not anywhere near the swing we saw in Florida 1. Look at that. Donald Trump won it by 37 points. The Republican won last night, but only by 15. That's a 22-point swing. We're talking about an average 19-point swing from the baseline back in 2024 in just a matter of 4 or 5 months. These are massive shifts. These are massive shifts to the left. Democrats really have to like this, even if the Republicans add it to their majority in terms of what this potentially means down the road. You take this type of swing, you put it on some swing districts, that's very good news for Democrats.
Now, yeah, on the surface level analysis, that seems like it is a very compelling case for the Democrats. But when you put this into the context of special elections, and specifically because Trump has already been in office for one full term, we know what special elections under Trump look like. And when we compare yesterday's special elections to what happened in Trump's first term, Republicans are actually doing better than they ever have. Now, before I get into those numbers, I think there are other caveats to add to that, a few of which I mentioned during yesterday's live stream. So according to Axios, the Democrats outspent and outraised the Republicans in Florida District 1. Petronas was outraised $3 for every $1. In Florida District 6, Fine was outraised and outspent 10 to 1. Big difference there. And by the way, same thing happened in Wisconsin. Crawford outraised Schimmel nearly 2 to 1. During the live stream yesterday, I was looking at a source that only looked at the campaign fundraising numbers and didn't take into consideration all the outside groups spending money in the state. And when you take a look at all the outside groups, as reported by Axios there, Crawford actually outspent Schimmel. But on top of that, so number one, it's the being outspent by the Democrats and having the entire Democrat apparatus focused in on Florida. So that has to account for some of the smaller margins. Number two, it's a special election. Special elections usually have lower turnout, and it's usually the more engaged, more informed voters that turn out versus a general election when everyone heads to the polls, right? But let's take a look at the special elections during Trump's first term. So in 2016, the very right-hand column, you'll see, let's take a look at that first row. Kansas's 4th congressional district. Trump won that district by 27 points. MOV stands for the margin of victory. Now, let's take a look at the results during the special election. Again, Kansas's 4th district. The Republican only won, Mike Pompeo, by 6 points. So in other words, that was a 26-point difference, over half. So the fact that the Florida special elections were only cut in half is actually an overperformance for the Republicans. Let's take a look at Montana's at-large congressional district. Same here. Trump won this by 21 points, but then special election, May 2017. Again, a year later, pretty much the same timeline as yesterday's special election in Florida. The Republican only won it, Ryan Zink, by 6 points. Again, the margin being cut by over half. And you can go down the entire column. Let's go down even more. South Carolina's 5th congressional district, about halfway through the page there. Trump won this by 18 points. Well, on the special election, the Republican only won it by 3 points. You can go down the list. There are a few exceptions. There are always a few exceptions. But by and large, it was way over half that those special elections swung to the left, swung to the Democrats. So for all the hand-wringing you're going to see on the Republican side, and for all the excitement you're going to see on the Democrat side, I think that this is a perspective that needs to be considered. I'm not saying that Republicans should breathe easy, rest easy going into next year, but things aren't as dire for MAGA as the left would have you believe. And over on CNN again, they are looking for every single silver lining that they can. And they were talking about these smaller margins, but they never once brought up that these margins are better than Trump's first term when there were also special elections.
Petronis is a strong candidate. He's going to win. We're projecting a win for him. But, Dana, it's not a 35-point win that it should be in ruby red Panhandle, Florida.
You're exactly right. And it is the whole question of the margins, Jake. That is what Democrats have been looking at all night.
Yeah, ruby red Panhandle, Florida. Well, I would argue that Kansas is also ruby red. Again, going back to these. Kansas, definitely ruby red. Montana, ruby red. And again, cut by more than half. So I do think yesterday was an overperformance by Republicans, not just in the actual results, but again, when you factor in being outspent, the entire Democrat apparatus being focused, the fact that Trump wasn't campaigning there. I mean, I don't want to make excuses, but I think all of those points are valid, and I think they all add up. One more story before we wrap up today's video, but before we do that, I want to acknowledge the members of today's Governor's Club. Again, these are people that have either tipped or given super thanks to the channel. I appreciate all of you: Stacy, William, USMC Carr, Tiffany's Bunny Gang, Slap My Smurf, Houston Sammy Girl, Tythos, Tim, Rocco Sant, Codename Dad, Jenda, Stringer Films, Jackie, Revert, Jason. I appreciate all of you. Your support is awesome and makes videos like this possible. So thank you so much. The last story of the day. Sorry, I'm trying to spit these out here before I have to leave here in a moment. But Snow White is bombing in the box office. So according to Yahoo News, Snow White box office plummets, suffers 66% drop in the second weekend. The reason this is so bad, I mean, obviously, we all knew that Snow White was going to be a box office flop, and the premiere box office weekend numbers were a lot lower than they were expecting. And then not only were they lower, but they actually had to revise them downwards after they had been reported because it had been overestimated and overreported. So a double embarrassment there. But typically, there is a very clear box office formula. And there were only 2 exceptions, really, when this formula is ever broken. But I don't know if you've ever wondered, how do they know how can they project what the box office run of a movie is going to be? Or maybe on a Friday, they'll have the ticket sales for Friday and they'll say, well, for opening weekend, this movie is going to gross $100 million. And you may say, well, it's only Friday. How do they know how much it's going to earn on Saturday and Sunday? Well, there are very clear formulas for calculating the box office, both on opening weekend as well as subsequent weekends. When it comes to subsequent weekends, the rule is almost always just cut it in half. So if a movie makes 100 million opening weekend, cut it in half. 50 million, that's going to be week 2, cut it in half. 25 million, week 3, cut it in half. 12.5 million, week 4. You can keep going that. It is almost a proven, it's a proven formula. And so the fact that Snow White dropped 66 in its second weekend, 16 points over that 50%, is a really bad sign. Now, like I said, there are 2 exceptions to that rule. Rule number 1 is what we call sleeper films. The reason they're called sleeper is because they have what we call long legs in the box office. And you're not expecting those to do huge numbers, but they the long legs carry it out. The best example of this is Titanic. Didn't come out with huge numbers, but the second weekend, it barely dropped. The third weekend, it actually went up. Same thing happened with the Avatar films. So just because something isn't a huge hit opening weekend, if it has long legs and the drops are a lot more minimal than 50%, it can do really well. The second exception to that is whenever there's a highly anticipated superhero movie or just highly anticipated movie in general, where the box office is going to be highly front-loaded. For example, like Harry Potter #7 Part 2, the very last movie of the entire franchise. It is Part 2 of the finale. And so most fans went opening weekend, or at least the diehard fans. So you saw over a 50% drop that second weekend because it was so front-loaded. So all of that very long, very convoluted to say Snow White is not doing well. I've seen reports that they are now expected to lose $120 to $150 million. But I think the reports are missing out a crucial piece of the puzzle, because what they're reporting on is just how much was spent to actually create the film. So actor, actress salaries, sets, like just the actual production itself. What they failed to mention is the marketing. And the marketing budget, from what I've seen, is well over $100 million. So I think that $120 to $150 million loss could be doubled to like over 220, 250, maybe even 300 when you take into account all that has been spent on marketing. And they're still doing marketing right now because they realize things are going bad. So makes you wonder, is Hollywood going to learn and wake up that when you go woke, you go broke? But as always, all of that is just my analysis and commentary. That is what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So what do you think about the special elections yesterday? Do you think I'm full of it? Do you think this is just copium for losing Wisconsin and trying to spin the Florida special elections? Or do you agree with my take that, hey, maybe these data points don't paint as bleak of a picture for the Republicans as Democrats would want you to believe? Or maybe do you come somewhere in the middle? Is there something that I'm leaving out? Or do you think I'm reading too much into those data points? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I would love to see everyone's tea leaf readings for what this means, not just right now, but what it means going into 2026. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, a like, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.